Hello, Lynn Dalmastro Thompson with Heartfire Healing here. Taking a second go at this video. For some reason it froze up on me and I wasn't sure if it was still broadcasting, so I wanted to just come back and start again since I was just barely into the video. And today's topic is all about learning to listen to your body's messages, learning to listen to them when they are whispers instead of when they're screams. So I came across this quote a few years ago that said, when we listen to the body's whispers, we don't have to hear it scream. And that quote really resonated for me because it was a big part of my own experience of not listening to the whispers when they were softer and more subtle, having smaller symptoms in my life. And when you don't listen and you don't listen, just like in real life, when you're having a conversation and somebody's not listening, we often kind of get louder and louder, and sometimes we scream. So screams in terms of our health are not very fun, and I think it's a really important topic for us to dive into, to understand that we really want to listen to the subtle messages that our bodies are giving, because who wants to have the scream? Who wants to have a big scary health crisis, a big diagnosis, all of those things? I don't want that for anyone. And I want to share this message as a way of helping you to kind of prevent yourself from getting to that point of the body really screaming at you. So kind of the first issue really that happens when we're not listening is we're dismissing our symptoms as just not important, as insignificant. So maybe you're saying, oh, that pain is just small, or, oh yeah, I seem to get a headache fairly frequently, but it's not really that big of a deal. Or I eat that food and I don't feel so well, but it doesn't really last that long. So, you may recognize yourself in that story of kind of dismissing something as not that big of a deal. I can live with that. It's not that big of a deal. But the problem is, if we're constantly dismissing something like that, it has to get bigger and louder. If it has a message, and this is one of the core things I'm always saying to people, is our symptoms are our body's way of talking to us. Well, it's like if somebody is trying to communicate something to you in your life and you keep not listening, then it's going to find a different way. Like somebody's going to, they're knocking at your front door and you're not answering. So maybe they're going to try you on the telephone, or they're going to walk around to a different door in your house and start knocking there. Like symptoms will just kind of keep popping up in different places, or they'll start getting increasingly louder and more annoying and more persistent, and that's not really fun. So in kind of, we want to start to understand that what we don't address and see will keep persisting for us, that it'll still be there and it's not going to just miraculously go away. So kind of having a mindset of understanding that all symptoms are your body's way of communicating with you. They're your body talking to you. That's actually part of the reason I love the name of the modality that I use, body talk, because our bodies do talk to us. Our bodies don't have words, but they talk to us in the language of, sensations and symptoms and things like that. And those are really intelligent communication from our body. So when we start to shift our mindset and we see that differently, we can start to have a conversation and listen to the messages. And, oftentimes we need tools to learn how to understand those messages. And that's one of the things that I love teaching people, is how to start to listen to those messages. Because believe me, in the beginning, I didn't understand the messages either. It's like, it's a language that you don't really speak. And sometimes we really need help in learning to decipher that message and what those symptoms really mean. So kind of that's the first real issue with not listening to our symptoms is, or we're dismissing them as small and insignificant. Well, they're just going to get louder because they're not just meaningless. They have a meaning and they want to be heard. So the second problem is when we're not really listening, or we're dismissing things as insignificant, we often also are saying, we don't have time to deal with this. So how many times have you said, oh, I'm really busy right now. I don't really have time for this problem. I don't really have time for this pain. And sometimes that can lead into kind of reaching for taking a medication. You know, you have a headache and you're like, I'm really busy today and I need to just go grab myself a Tylenol because I've got stuff to do and I don't have time for this headache, so it just needs to go away. And we're not also prioritizing in that time system. We're not prioritizing taking care of our body, taking care of ourselves. We're just getting used to being like, oh, well, you know, I got things to do, and, you know, just stop being so noisy, body. And, you know, you have an upset stomach, grab something for that. You know, grab something for whatever pain you have and just keep on moving. And there's just no time. There's no time for your body. So, you know, maybe you recognize yourself in that as well, of kind of just being too busy to make time for your body and for self-care. Well, at what cost is that coming really for you? If you're not making time for it now, it's just going to get more time consuming if you get really sick. It's going to be worse for your health. You know, if this problem goes from just being, you know, yeah, I get a headache most days, to like, what if that headache develops into something even bigger? And you have to address it then, like at what cost is it then? So it's really a powerful thing to address something when it's smaller, and it's like, oh, well, if I make time to address it now, the time factor that I need for that now is, you know, 30 minutes a day or an hour a day. Well, what if it becomes really big and scary and it basically takes over your life? That's not so great. So we really need to start shifting our mindset around this and start realizing, you know, time is a great excuse, and we use it for a lot of different things. I don't have time for this right now. I don't have time for that right now. I don't have time to listen to my body right now, or time to make priority for my health or self-care. At what cost? At what cost later? It's going to come back at some point. So wouldn't it be better now to start making time for that relationship with your body, time for self-care, time to understand what the messages your body is giving you, and address it now before it gets bigger and scarier? So another piece of this is that, you know, we've become conditioned to think that certain things are normal. And this is kind of a very interesting aspect of this particular issue of symptoms, because we're conditioned to think, oh, you know, a little bit of like digestive symptoms are kind of normal. You know, oh yeah, I eat certain things and I feel kind of gassy or bloated afterwards. Isn't that normal, right? Everybody feels that. Or, you know, for women, we have hormonal symptoms, and sometimes we're just saying, oh, you know, that's got to be normal. You know, oh, maybe I'm perimenopausal, or, you know, maybe it's around the time of my cycle. Whatever it is, we're dismissing certain things as, oh, normal, you know. And sometimes that even comes through the medical system, because I've heard so many women say, you know, I'm having all these hormonal symptoms, and I go to my doctor and then they say, oh, you're perimenopausal, and yet these women are kind of like maybe in their early or mid 30s, which is pretty early to be having those symptoms. So they're not so normal. And yet we're starting to see certain things as normal. And then we see certain other things like aches and pains as normal. You know, I've seen this with many people saying, you know, I was kind of achy and I started having these pains, but I thought, you know, hey, I'm getting older. And yet these people who are saying this are, again, in a fairly young age category, you know, in their 30s or 40s. We're not talking about people in their, you know, 70s. And they're dismissing certain pains as just, oh yeah, that's a normal part of the aging process. I actually witnessed this with my husband as he went through kind of his own journey with realizing that chronic illness was part of his life. He had been dismissing certain pains for a really long time and just saying, you know, oh, it's old age. And, you know, he's a few years older than I am, but he's not by any means an old man. So we get so conditioned to seeing certain things as normal, and yet most of these things really aren't normal. Like, they are not, we're not meant to be tired all of the time. That's another one. We're not meant to have digestive problems all the time, hormonal symptoms as women, like all of these things, they're not normal. And yet, are you accepting them as normal? So it's really important to start investigating, you know, what we think of as normal. Are they really normal? And a lot of times, again, kind of that Western medicine perspective might be a little bit different than what you could find when you start to realize, you know, like in terms of the digestive symptoms, a lot of them come from different things that, you know, are dietary. And that's not really my area of expertise, but I know enough about diet to know that certain foods are going to contribute to digestive issues. And yet, you know, we're told, if we look at kind of like standard information on diet, you know, we should be eating grains or we should eat dairy. Well, a lot of those things for many of us, our bodies have a hard time digesting. And so we're dismissing these symptoms as normal because we think, oh, I'm supposed to eat these things. This is normal. So really getting educated for yourself about, you know, what is normal, and not just dismissing everything that you feel, every symptom that you feel as normal. And instead, you know, well, could this actually be an early warning sign of something bigger going on? It's so amazing to see, you know, when we start to realize that some of these symptoms that we might just be writing off as normal aren't normal, and we address the root of the problem, they go away. Like people who are just chronically tired all of the time, and you get to the root of that issue, and you can feel so much more energy, or you address why your digestive system isn't really feeling that great, and you feel, you know, bloated and uncomfortable, and your stomach feels hard all the time, and that can go away. So it's not normal. And when we get to the root of it, which is really at the heart of everything here, we want to get to the root of the problem. We want to get to the root of why is a symptom showing up. So we don't want Band-Aids. And that's kind of the final thing that I wanted to share today in this video, is Band-Aid solutions really don't work. So when we take a medication like, you know, I have a headache and I take some Tylenol to make the headache go away, if there's an underlying reason for that headache, it's going to keep coming up. Or if it's trying to be a message and communicate to us in some way and we're not getting the message, it's also going to pop up in a different way. So this is my famous analogy of the game of whack-a-mole. You know, you suppress a symptom in one place and it just will find another place to pop up and crop up, which is not fun because you're constantly chasing symptoms. So what if instead of putting a Band-Aid on top of it and just pretending, you know, oh, it's not really a problem, or, you know, oh, I don't have a gaping wound here that needs stitches, but I'm just going to stick a Band-Aid on it and cover it up and think problem's not there, I can't see it anymore. When we get to that root of the problem and we really heal it, then we actually heal instead of just chasing symptoms. So that's the other piece of learning to listen to the body's messages and the body's whispers, is not relying on Band-Aids, not relying on what we become conditioned to. You know, and I was doing the research for my book. It was really interesting to kind of look up statistics of like how many people take over-the-counter medications on a regular basis. And I can't remember the statistic that I found, but it was quite a large number of over-the-counter medications that are used annually by people, because we are so conditioned to just see our symptoms and the messages of our body as inconvenient, they're noisy, I don't have time for it, you know, so let's make it go away as quickly as possible and just reach for the Band-Aid. Well, Band-Aids, again, it's not pulling it up at the root. It's like you have a big weed in your garden and you just come by and you cut off the top. It's going to keep growing, right? You didn't come by and yank it out by the root and get rid of it. You just kind of cut up off the top of it, or you cut it off at the grass line and it's there, still ready to keep on growing. So ultimately, you know, when you're not listening and when you're not taking the time to address what's going on with you, it's going to cost you more in the long run. It's going to cost you time. It's going to cost you at what cost for your health and well-being. Things are going to get louder. Your body might start getting, you know, more angry, and the messages start to be like screams. So back to my own story, you know, initially when I was really miserable in my early mid-20s in grad school, and I was following a path that really wasn't for me, I did have some kind of more mild symptoms. I was kind of feeling a little bit of depression and anxiety. I started getting migraines again, which had been part of my growing up experience. And I just kind of dismissed all of these things. I did all of these things that I was saying here in this video of, oh, I don't have time to deal with it. Oh, I'll just, take that as what it is. It's not that big of a deal. Or I'll take a pill and just kind of try and make it go away. Well, then my body had to resort to getting really loud and really forceful with me. And ultimately, in my perspective, that's part of why I believe that I got really sick in my mid-20s, was because I was not listening. And so take it from somebody who's been there and had the loud scream, you don't want to get there. Learn to listen to your body now while the messages are softer and more quiet and not as big. And ultimately, you will be able to resolve them more quickly. And then ultimately, you will feel better and healthier. So I hope that the message really came across loud and clear of learning to listen to your body's wisdom, learning to listen to your body's messages now. And if this is something also that you're curious about and you're saying, well, I want to know how to learn how to listen to my body's messages, but I don't really know. If you are in the Portland, Oregon area, I'm doing a really neat new workshop. It's a 3-hour workshop on Saturday, September 7th, where I'm going to be diving more into this and teaching some tools and some skills around this. And if you aren't in the Portland, Oregon area and you're really interested in this topic, I am considering offering that as a distance workshop as well. So let me know if there's enough interest. I will kind of create a virtual option for the workshop. It won't be the same day, but I'll create a virtual option because I really think it's important to start empowering people to learn to listen to their body's wisdoms and learn to listen to the messages. And it's a skill set. So, you probably need some tools and some skills around that. So if this message really resonated for you and you think there's somebody else in your life who might need to hear it as well, feel free to share this video with them. It's always helpful to just help me share that message with other people who might need it. So again, thank you for taking the time to listen, and I will also share the link to the workshop if you want details, and let me know if you're interested in a virtual option if you're not local to me in the Portland area. All right, have a wonderful rest of your day and a wonderful weekend as well. All right, take care and see you all soon.